What's happening, folks? Welcome to Classical Days. I'm very excited to kick off a series of maybe 5 days of classical reactions. Luca is very excited as well. And I've decided to bookend this week with 2 Beethoven piano sonatas. Now, I may do these from 2 different releases because I have all 3 of the sonatas that you see on this release right here, which is from the famous Deutsche Grammophon label, and in this case the performance is done by Daniel Barenboim. But I also have all 3 of these sonatas on a different CD performed by, I think it's Claudio Arrau. So yes, I'm going to start with the Barenboim CD for the Pathetique Sonata, which is number 8 by Beethoven, though when I come to end this week and I do the last piece of the Classical Days, I'm going to do his 14th Sonata, which is the famous Moonlight Sonata, and just to keep things fresh and to hear different players, I'll probably do the Claudio Arrau release. In any case, this is arguably my favorite piano sonata, period, full stop, not just by Beethoven, but overall. And of course, the Moonlight Sonata, rightly so, is celebrated worldwide and is probably his most famous piano work. Maybe Für Elise is along the same lines. And there's no problem with that, I completely get it, but for me, the Pathetique is his true piano sonata masterpiece, and that opinion was initially started through this CD. Again, I got this from my dad. Those who know my channel will know that my dad is a longtime aficionado of classical music. That's where my love of classical music came from. More on that in these Classical Days when I react to Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto, concerto, which someone has been asking for. But ultimately, a lot of the music that I've inherited in that regard came from his collection. So a lot of the performances are from the 80s. This is from 1984, and it's a CD that I remember listening to very early on, and I became a big fan of all 3 sonatas on here, but for whatever reason, especially the Pathetique. And this appreciation was accentuated and enhanced enormously when I watched the J-drama Notame Cantabile. Those who know my Patreon will be aware I've done a full watch-along for that series, which is all about the world of classical music and college music students who are trying to get into performance and conducting, and of course all the personal dramas that happen as part of that. But one of the very first pieces, if not the first piece you hear at the beginning of that show, is the allegro movement from this sonata. And it's, well, I'm going to do these in different movements, so I'll talk about that when we get to the next movement. But yes, it's one of my favorite movements of any piece ever, and it's just exquisitely beautiful. Now, the opening movement it has a long description. It's a grave or grave, which means slowly with solemnity, followed by an allegro de molto e con brio, which means, I think, is it very fast? I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget. Yes, very quickly with vigor. And there's definitely a moment where you can hear the switch from the slowly with solemnity to the very fast and with vigor. I think it's actually reversed. I think you hear the fast part first and then the slow part. Either way, this movement definitely has 2 sides to it in terms of tempo and tone. So yes, let's kick off Classical Days with the first movement of Beethoven's 8th piano sonata, the Pathetique. And as I said, it is a grave allegro de molto e con brio. And as it's performed by Daniel Barenboim. Magisterial. So yeah, it was actually more alternating than I was recalling before starting it. Meaning we jump back and forth between the fast with vigor sections and the slow with solemnity. And I enjoy both, but I love the slight mischief of the faster sections, that little recurrent motif that keeps coming back around 3 or 4 times. It just has this sprightly mischief to it. And then there's those sections where it's sort of escalating. It's like almost like walking upstairs. I enjoy, of course, the lighter touches. I mean, I don't know if anything you would call piano in the, piano forte spectrum. Most of it is forte on some level, but especially when you get to some of the end of some of those fast passages, there's some real like powerful forte moments. So I was also thinking as I was listening, it's the kind of piece where you can hear both hands moving independently, but then often converging and coming back and reharmonizing with each other. So there's parts where you can hear what one of the hands is doing, whether it's trilling or just keeping up a tempo, whereas the other one is playing a melody. And then, as I said, I enjoy when you can hear them separately and then they converge, where it just sounds like one melodic line. So it's just really creative writing. It's certainly the type of piece that you have to be a dexterous and skillful player. Not to say something like, I don't know, for example, Fur Elise doesn't require you to have some skill, and of course, the degree to which you can play that well might vary depending on the experience of the player, but I feel like a piece like this, a movement like this, requires even more dexterity and precision. So yes, shout out to Daniel Barenboim. As I said, I'm going to go through all 3 movements, and that's what I'm going to be doing all week. Now, there are some pieces where I'm going to react to one movement pieces, overtures and the like, or individual parts of a suite. Nevertheless, most of what I'm going to be doing this week, full concertos, full sonatas, full symphony. So I hope you're here for it. I'm going to come right back and do, as I said, one of my favorite movements in any piece ever, maybe my favorite piano sonata movement, which is the allegro cantabile right after this. So I will see you in a moment. Peace.